So most people aren't fortunate enough to live by what I would call a massive part of nature. So the ocean, a waterfall, a massive lake, a mountain. Like those are like the places that people travel to
Yeah.
specifically for like a holiday because they're just amazing. And what I find when you sit by a waterfall is the impact of the sound of the water. It's like being next to a lion. It's like such a like it's so powerful. You can feel the energy from the water running off the rocks, pouring into the water. It really does like charge you, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it really relaxes you because of the power of this
Right.
like tons and tons of water.
Most definitely, I agree. Like water is just like so healing in so many different ways. Like not only like being by it, but like of course like drinking water too. Like when you really focus on like hydration or using like water therapy. Like so many people are so into like doing like the whole cold shower thing, or you know what I mean? Like those extreme people, I'm not quite like there all the time. Once in a while I'll do it. But yeah, just water in general, but specifically natural bodies of water for sure, because they have that sense of purity within them as well, and it kind of like has a way of kind of cleansing our energy when that's really the intention.
What's amazing is I used to just drink tap water like everyone else did growing up because that was just what it was for. Like you want to drink water, you drink out the tap. And my mum always used to buy bottled water and spend like probably hundreds of pounds a year on bottled water, which is, as it says on the bottle, comes straight from the mountain, right? And so it's like, why are you paying for that when there's water at the tap? And as you get older, you understand like, the importance of pure water. We're 80% water. Water in England is just sewage water filtered a
Mm,
billions of times, and maybe
right.
it's the same in your country, and yet you drink it, and it's like just because it's been cleaned doesn't mean that the
Hmm.
products that it was cleaned with aren't gonna harm us. And it's like we're the only animal on the planet that doesn't drink natural like rainwater. So it's like you look at how much disease like humans have, and it's like no one understands why, but those are
Hmm.
massive reasons why. It's just not
For sure.
drinking pure,
Pure
clean
water.
water. It's not that
Yeah.
necessarily clean or dirty, just pure water in the highest, I don't know, pH level of, whatever, as it should be. Yeah.
Hmm. I completely agree. And like even further on that, like everything has chemicals in it these days, like our food, like our air, everything has it. So I think all of that makes a huge difference in like, yeah, the disease rates of certain countries, like the industrialization. Like of course there have been so many benefits from that, but at the same time like sickness is at an all-time high at the same time. And yeah, pure water is for sure a thing, but you know what, um, I'll do that kind of helps with that. And actually I definitely feel a difference is just adding some like apple cider vinegar into my water, because I don't like really buying a bunch of like bottled waters. If there's like a machine of some sort, like on your fridge, or of course I'll like go for that instead, or like a water filter, like I have one of those. But if I have to use tap water, just add in a little bit of apple cider vinegar, and apparently it kind of purifies it a little bit. And plus, there's so many benefits to apple cider vinegar anyway. Like I noticed like a huge difference compared to just drinking like that regular tap water for sure.
Tell me more about this apple cider vinegar thing.
You've never used it before?
Never heard of it. I've heard of
What?
it, but I don't know
Oh
like
my
what it would
goodness.
do to me. Like I want to learn all this shit, so tell me.
Well, it's really it's intense. Like the flavor is so powerful. You take one little sip and it's like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it's like really good for just like cleansing your body in general. Like I notice like my digestion is better, my skin is better, just my overall kind of like vibrance and energy levels are better when I have it. And it's versatile. You could put it in your water, but you could also take it as a shot, or I put it in like salad dressings. Like I mix it with tahini and lemon or something like that and make like a salad dressing with it. So there's a lot you can do with it.
My mum had a bottle of, I think it was apple cider vinegar, like 7 years ago. Somebody gave them a book. He's an 85-year-old man who's like eats garlic, vitamins, every fucking vitamin under the sun. He's like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And proof is in the pudding. He's 85 and he's living life like he's like 20, right? And so he
Hmm.
gave my mum this book. I'm pretty sure it was an apple cider vinegar thing. And it just sat on her table for like 4 years because I believe if you think about something, you'll go out and get it and you'll have a need for it. If somebody says, hey,
Hmm.
you need to use this, you'll be open to it, but it wasn't your direct thought. So it just will sit there until you make it your thought. So that vinegar
Right.
just sat on the side. It
Right.
hasn't even been used. I don't even know where it is now. I don't know if she binned it, but now that you've mentioned it, if it is apple cider vinegar, which I think it is, I'm going to start using it because it's been here for, if it's still in the house, for like 4 or 5 years. Um, yeah, is it similar to like the effects of ginger and how it, or let's say turmeric on your, like a turmeric tablet, how it will
Yeah,
cleanse
yeah.
or something?
Exactly, how it's an anti-inflammatory.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So definitely similar to like turmeric in that way, how it's gets rid of antioxidants in the body. Ginger is like similar. It works really well, but that I would say it's a little bit more for like immune boosting in general, like clearing your sinuses, boosting your immune system, and like all of that type of stuff. But like, yeah, like say you make a tea with ginger, turmeric, and apple cider vinegar, that's like all you need. And also maybe like a little bit of pepper or something to activate the compounds in the turmeric. But yeah, all three of those together, like that's all you need, and you will like get over like some cold or some flu like really quick.
That's the thing, right? If you have symptoms of a cold or flu, for example, it's
Hmm.
been in your body for at least a few days before, and the symptoms are your immune fighting it. So,
Right.
so, so you can either let your own immune fight it or take something else to help fight it for you. Um,
Hmm.
if you keep your immune in a tip-top shape, then you'll never get to that point of feeling the symptoms because you'll already have
Yeah.
the immune to fight it. And what's really interesting is when I was 21, I was enlightened, right? And my energy had never been so high. And I
Uh-huh.
always had really bad hay fever. I'd never get ill.
Yeah.
The crackling noise.
Totally. I agree. It's all about kind of like the place that you're in your life. Like if you're all around like feeling so good, like energetically, mentally, emotionally, physically, and you're just like on your game, like then you're not going to get sick as much. I think people get sick when they first of all they're not resting enough. You know, they're not like finding balance, and I think people mistake that as like, oh, so you're just like really active, like you're always working out and you're not resting. Like, yeah, that's a thing. Like, you need to rest. But I feel like in modern day cultures, we're just kind of like told that we need to be like working all the time, grinding all the time, like, and it creates this stress in our bodies, like the stress response. And it goes kind of under the radar because it's just the normal, you know, and then we're exposed to chemicals, to unclean air, to unclean water, and then we're stressed out, so we want to go have a couple shots of vodka and then run to
Hang on, so
McDonald's.
just quickly, it's crackling. Can you make sure your things plug? It's like crackling. It's almost like your
Is it
It's
okay?
almost like
Is it
it's
good
almost
now?
like it's almost like the lightning port's not all the way in or something like that. I don't know. It's like a crackling noise. Don't know.
That's really strange. Do you still hear it? Because I was kind of resting on the headphones for a moment. Do you still hear it?
Yeah, I can. I don't know what it is.
That's so weird. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what it is. I don't hear it.
Let me just shut some tabs down. Don't know why that would have any relevance. It's not here. I'll say if it is, but anyway.
Okay.
So yeah. So I never ever got ill. I had the flu, had it colds growing up, but I had really bad hay fever. And people
Hmm.
say, "Oh, well, clearly you've not got a good immune if you've got a bad
Hmm.
hay fever." And I'm like, "No, you've got to understand that hay fever is my immune recognizing something in the air, a foreign pathogen, pollen, grass, whatever, flu,
Right.
and shooting it out before it even has chance to go in my body, which is why
Exactly.
I had never had the flu, but I always had really bad hay fever. And when I was enlightened, I sort of healed my parents. Took a lot of mental and physical energy to heal them, and I
Hmm.
got the flu every year. because I was essentially doing three people's amount of energy, and I had the flu every year, and my hay fever disappeared. So the opposite
Mhm.
happened, right? It's really interesting.
Mhm.
I got the flu,
Cool.
which I never had done, but my hay
Yeah.
fever didn't exist. And now
Yeah.
I've done a full circle, and I'm back to where what used to be before I did my journey, healed my
Mhm.
parents. Is that my
Mhm.
hay fever it's never been, it's so bad like it used to be, and I
Yeah.
haven't had the flu. So I didn't have the flu last year, but I had the flu the year before and the year before that. So as my energy
Mhm.
started to rise, I didn't get the flu anymore, but the hay fever's getting really, really bad. And I've noticed that just by sneezing really weakens me. Like I really feel weak today. Like yesterday was a high pollen count, and I was
Mhm.
sneezing so bad, and I've woken up just like tired and weak, which is
Mhm.
why it's so important to like maintain health, because you don't know when you're going to have this weak moment, and if you've not got an immune system to fight it, like when a
Yeah.
coronavirus comes around, you're fucked. So it's almost like preparing for a war that your
Yeah.
country never has. You just have to be
Right.
prepared.
Totally. And I think that's interesting that you say that you kind of like took on like your parents' energy and kind of like that sounds like you're a very empathic type person. And I can definitely resonate with that kind of like taking on someone else's thing and trying to like heal it within yourself. And I think that's for sure like a thing within your family, you know, because you're so close to them or whoever you're like so bonded. But
Hang
you
on one
know,
sec,
I
it's
think
crackling. Try taking out try taking out the earphones. I don't know why.
okay.
As in like pull them out the phone.
Can you
Okay,
hear
can you hear
me?
me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're like really quiet though for some reason. Hold on, let me turn it up. Okay,
Just
go ahead.
just try it without the earphones. See if that's
Yeah,
any.
I don't have the earphones in. It says speaker off though.
As long as you can hear me, I can hear you fine.
You're like really quiet for some reason.
Is the volume turned up?
It is.
Can you hear me now better?
No. Do you know why it would say speaker off?
I don't know. Try turning speaker on, maybe.
I don't know how to do that.
Like where it says speaker off, is there like a button that you can just press to like turn it on?
No, there's not.
Just turn the volume up all the way. As long as you can hear me,
It
then.
is. It's up all the way.
Well, I think you're the interference. It wasn't me.
It's okay. I'll just try to like listen to you, you know. I'll just listen with my ears really closely.
Um, what was I going to say? Yeah. So you were talking about how I took on my parents' energies, which weakened my own energy. Gone.
Right, totally. And sometimes I feel like that's a thing, whether we even are like intentionally trying to do something like that. And that's why I also feel that like it's kind of important to have some boundaries, you know, with certain stuff like that. That's something as a massage therapist, I've totally like learned how to do is just knowing, like being more self-aware of like when I'm like taking on someone else's stuff, you know, and making it my own because it will physically be on you, you know, just like your experience. So, you know, there are so many different things you can do too to kind of like cleanse your energy, like such as being in a body of natural water for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. People want to be a good listener to a friend, right?
Hmm.
If your friend's got problems for whatever reason, right? Illness, the husband's being a twat or whatever, right? Kids being a pain in the ass. You naturally want to be a good friend and you want to listen, but without even realizing, you are making their problems yours by absorbing that vibration. Like you
Right.
may not be specifically taking action on the words, but by hearing those sounds and those words, because they will have negative vibrations, for example, that is becoming into your energy field, and unconsciously you're thinking about these things, even though you're not aware consciously. You're seeing situations differently based on what they've said. I know, for example, if I think of somebody, I will see them. Like the other day, I thought about a friend's dad from school, not seen him for 8 years. He wasn't even a friend. His dad just came into my head. I go on a walk and his dad walks past me. And I was going to sleep thinking about just like 8 people I had fights with growing up at school, like because they were just always picking on me and I sort of pushed back on them. And I just had a
Hmm.
flashback of all these situations in the gym room.
Yeah.
And I thought of say 8 people, but it was one person I didn't think of in the group. I go shopping, that one person I didn't think of walks past me,
No
and so
way.
I'm aware that my thoughts are creating all the time. So if I'm listening to somebody speak about a school situation or got up or whatever, that's part of my energy, and I'm going to attract this. So simply by being in a place where you are absorbing energy from language, just like if you're by the waterfall and you're absorbing in that powerful energy, it's having the same effect but in a negative way. And people don't understand. Listening to somebody talk about their problems, yes, you're a good friend, but you've got to put one before two. That's why everyone's got problems, because we're all sharing each other's problems.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. Because you start absorbing, yeah, that frequency and that emotion, and you start resonating with it. You start feeling, I've had a situation like that happen to me before too. And it kind of like puts you back in that time, and it gets you in that mind frame. And those old emotions start getting triggered and whatnot. And yeah, I think it's crazy how connected we are as humans. I think a lot of people feel that we are so separate, but in reality, it's like we're all like reflections of each other, basically. It's like how I treat you, most likely you're going to treat me that way as well. Or if you react in a different way, I'm going to react that way as well. It's like we're constantly kind of reflecting and adapting off of each other. But most definitely, I think it is important to have time alone. Like I know that has really helped me, like as I kind of like have come into like my power and like my really unraveling myself. I know that I've had to go through times of just being like kind of lonely in a sense, but in that loneliness, I've found that like I'm not alone. I'm with myself, and that's really all I need, and like maybe my higher power. I've found like my higher power within nature or within myself, or however that resonates with every individual. But I think once you realize that, it gives you this sense of ability to just be okay no matter what, and like know that you can handle it. And of course, human connection is so valuable and precious, and you're more able to see, okay, is this connection really for me? Like, is it raising my vibration, or is it bringing me down? Because I know that I'm okay being on my own. So if this isn't, helping me or nourishing me, then it's probably not for me.
Yeah, I always say to people, friends should elevate you to feel better, or you feel the exact same with them as if you're by yourself. There's no point spending all that time and energy and effort getting ready and going out to see somebody if you feel the exact same by yourself. Now, obviously, it's a
Yeah,
choice. You can choose to go for a walk by yourself or cook food by yourself. So you could say seeing a friend if it's the same feeling. It's a choice. But whole point of seeing a friend is they elevate you. You get excited when you're with them. You want to see them again. You miss them. If you're not
right.
feeling like I really enjoyed that, I want to see them again, they didn't serve any purpose. I
Yeah.
haven't seen friends. I've not gone out with friends. I don't have any friends. 7 years ago, I said goodbye to my childhood friends growing up who were just there from school. Like I had no choice because even though like we didn't fall out or anything, I just wasn't feeling like it's just like it was a pattern. It's almost like I'm having a takeaway every day that it wasn't a treat anymore, right? Rather than having it once a week. I wasn't getting that I can't, I love being with you. I want to see you again. It was just the same old boring bullshit through no
Right.
fault of their own. And it all comes down to you need to feel elevated with anything you do. Otherwise, you might as well
Yeah.
be alone. Like I go out for walks at night time by myself. I see animals. I speak to I cheat when the birds tweet. I tweet back, even if they're not really tweeting to me. I just sort of go, and then I imagine that they're speaking back to me, even though they're probably not.
Yeah.
I see frogs on the floor when it's raining. I see squirrels. I'm part of nature and animals that I feel on such a high by myself with the fucking tree and a squirrel. I don't need to be with somebody down the pub or the bar who are just going to talk shit. They're just going to go out for a fag. They're just going to drink alcohol and then moan about their problems. Like obviously, I can't. I want everyone to be happy and peaceful, but the reality is you can't. So you got to put one first, and there's an enormous power of being lonely but not feeling alone. No, hang on, I said that wrong. There's enormous power with being alone but not feeling lonely.
Right. 100%. I totally agree. And you like kind of what you were saying, once you feel comfortable just kind of being alone, especially in nature, and you start looking to other sources of having a companion, such as, yeah, trees, plants, animals, for sure, other life forms. I think people forget that these are other life forms with a consciousness and emotions and a life, and we definitely have a connection to them as well. Like, they're there for a reason. And they say like the dog is the man's best friend. Like, yeah, that is so true. But like you can find that in like a bird or a squirrel or anything, and it's tapping into that frequency. It's almost like that telepathic type communication. I know that's getting kind of woo woo probably for some people, but it's like it's totally a thing. And I think what's important to remember is like we create our own reality. So any self-limiting thought that you're putting on yourself or reality, like if you're saying, well, that's just not possible, like I need to see it to believe it, type thing. Yeah, like that's valid, but that's also cutting yourself off from so many possibilities out there.
Like if you think about, okay, I've got an uncle in Australia, which I do. To see him, I'll have to go to the airport, travel on the plane for say 24 hours, and then see him, right? If I think of him, or used to, or whatever, if I think of him, he'll message me. I've got somebody in Canada who was thinking of me, and I couldn't sleep because they were thinking of me, and I had to get up and go to the other room and text them saying, "Will you stop fucking thinking of me?" Like, because I knew she was thinking of me, like I couldn't get her out of my head. So I had to be like, "Look, are you thinking of me?" And then she was like, "Yeah, I'm going through some issues. I was just thinking about you." I'm like, "Well, I'm trying to sleep. Like, can you stop?" And to hear that,
Yeah.
that's fucking crazy. Like, I'm in bed. I can't get you off my head. I know you're thinking of me. I go into the other room. I
Hmm.
text you saying, "Stop fucking thinking of me." That sounds crazy, right? But the same as like when I thought about my friend's dad from
No,
school and I
it's
see
so
him.
valid.
If you look at the Earth and think, okay, well, my uncle's billions of miles away, for example, you'll think, well, how can he think of you? But if you look at the Earth, zoom out, and then you see like Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto. You go out more, you see the galaxy, and then you see there's different layers. So you've got like the galaxy, universe, whatever, right? And you keep going out, and you realize the Earth is just a little tiny dot amongst billions of other dots. And so,
Right.
if we're all in this energy, what makes you think that if he's in Australia and she's in Canada and I'm in England, I'm simply next door to you on the dot? If you think about planets, Earth is next door to see Mars. It's just like a next door neighbor. You go around asking for some milk or whatever, but you
Hmm.
zoom out into the universe, all of a sudden you're not on this rock, and Australia is, say, thousands of miles away. You're literally next door, and we're all connected. So why wouldn't I be able to think of somebody in Australia? Just like, why can't you go to your neighbor's house and get milk? It's the same thing. But if you see it as just I'm physically here, you're physically in America, wherever you are, you won't understand. But that is a really powerful way to understand it. If you can
It
see,
is.
zoom out from
Yeah.
Earth, and you keep going back and back and back and back and back, you realize, fucking hell, this rock is just a
We're
tiny
so
dot.
tiny.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're a little speck of dust within so many different specks. And I think traveling really like opened me up to that idea. Like when I was in Southeast Asia, I take a bus or whatever that's all the way on the other side of the country. And yeah, it takes me like maybe 10 hours, but it just put me in that perspective. Like it's like a 5 hour drive or something that's across the state is like, it's right there. It's like your next door neighbor. I think we get so put in this bubble, you know what I mean? Of like, we're just kind of stuck and like everything around us is like all that kind of matters. Like someone who lives so far away, it's just kind of irrelevant because they're just not right here. But in reality, like, yeah, we are still so connected in so many different ways. And what you said about like you can feel when someone is like thinking about you, I totally think that is a true thing as well. And what is even like more funny is like, say like you're kind of dating someone, like someone new, and you're both kind of in that new like, oh,
Mhm.
just kind of excited, and you know what I mean, and you can just like feel that person thinking about you, and you're like, am I going crazy? Like, please just stop. And I think like meditating is like so key for that, because sometimes like when I'm trying to sleep, like what you just said, like I'm like, hearing all these like thoughts, or like I'm like feeling someone's energy, and I'm just like, just stop. Like I need to like mellow out my mind and get it back to this present state, because I will just like go and go and go in these circles.
But what's so fascinating about this situation is this person in Canada, I've never met them. Like I just came across them online and we started speaking for like a week. I'd never met them, and yet consistently for like 3 days we were consistently thinking about each other. And what's amazing is when we stopped thinking about each other, we weren't thinking about each other. So you can actually know when someone's thinking of you. For example,
Mm.
if you think about a friend just once, they could have thought about you and then let it go, or you could have, say, looked at a photo or seen something on TV which triggered off them, and then you think about them. So that's just one. But if you think about them again, it means that they picked up your thought about you thought about them, and they thought about you again and again and again and again. Like they
Yeah,
chose to keep thinking more of you, and like they kept you on their mind for
yeah,
longer than just, oh, I'll give her a call. Go out for dinner one
right,
day. They were thinking consistently and longer and other things. That is how you know when someone's thinking of you, because they're not just on your mind and then you go back to doing something else. You literally can't get them off your mind. Like they are just the forefront of, why the fuck is this song going round in my head? Why am I thinking of this person? And the
right.
answer is because they're thinking of you.
Right, exactly. Like it's almost like not even a choice, like you have to be so deliberate in like, okay, like this has to
Yes,
stop. And you can notice a difference because you can
there
feel when
is.
it's like you just kind of naturally think of them, like they just pop in your mind, because it's almost like the feeling of the thought is a little softer, I would say. But once you get into that like repetitive thinking back and forth, it feels almost like it's slightly forced. It's a just a heavier type of thought, and it's right here like in the center of your brain rather than coming from like behind.
It's like being in love. Like you can't get them off your mind. You're like, oh my god, like what's just happened? It's, as you say, it's the same type of thing. Like I know for a fact that when I'm thinking about somebody, they're thinking about me. But then if we're not thinking about each other because we're busy, there is no thoughts. They're not in my mind. So
Right.
that significant difference of when you're thinking versus when you're not, it is significant, and so many. That's why people should always react or respond to a thought, because there's a meaning behind it. Thinking of your nan, she's thinking of you. Like don't just think, oh, I see it at Christmas. Like reach out, go round.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I went to America with my uncle, I did Route 66. I travelled from LA to Vegas. It was like 3 days or whatever. Those days, just the time flew past because everything I saw was different. I was along the mountains, I was along the roads, I saw trucks, I saw desert, I saw ocean. Everything was new. Whereas when you live in, say, a certain place and you always travel an hour to work, it's just boring. Fucking hell, can't wait to get home. But traveling, as you said, you'd purposely go 7 hours on the bus just so you could see the fucking world, right? And then
Hmm.
time doesn't exist because you're so engaged that, oh my god, look at that. Oh my god, like like
It's
it's
just part
amazing.
of the journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
You're appreciating it.
yeah, it's not travel. It's being present. Like you're traveling, but you're not traveling. You're being present because you're in that
Right.
moment. You just happen to be in a bus, which is sort of teleporting you to the next island. So
Yeah,
yeah, nature, but traveling really does make you see the whole world differently.
it
Hence why
does. It
people
just
never
like
really
it
want to come
opens
home
up.
because of how shitty life is when you come home.
Right, totally. And I think it can act as just such a reset. Like I right now I'm so like yearning for it. I need to just like go on a road trip or something with like the quarantine, like, that feeling of being like forced to kind of to stay in like one spot. Like I'm so thankful that where I live it's a little bit more relaxed, I would say, like with the quarantine. Definitely, like we were still allowed to like go out in nature and stuff like that. So like that's really what saved me, is like going on a hike like every day, trying to social distance myself, or whatever. But yeah, just being outside like every single day, and that's like still what I have to do no matter what. But I think, yeah, there's something about traveling. I know for me that like it resets me in a way. It kind of brings me back to like my core like values and really seeing life for what it is, because I think we get so caught up in all these dramas that we create, or like these standards, these expectations of like my life has to be looking a certain way or else I'm doomed, you know, when in reality it's not that way. It's like your life is your life. You get to create the life that you want. Like it's almost like a movie, you know? It's all about how you're perceiving it, the types of experiences that you're having, how you're reacting to those experiences, and like kind of just like the choice to like make the best out of any situation.
So you're a holistic health person, right? So you probably don't agree with like medicines, more so natural stuff. As So I've always known this, and I'm sure you know it as well. But there's really no any disease is man-made through actions man has done, and it diabetes, Crohn's, dementia, even like Tourette's, OCD, Asperger's, right? Because it's all part of the brain, which is part of like society and fitting into different energy vibrations, like heart disease, any cancers. They literally are. When you understand why your
Any
body
virus as
gets
well.
yeah, even like the flu, when you understand why your body gets these things, forget the name man's given it and the medicine man's given it and how many people die from it. That's not the point. It's why is my body in this state? And it always goes down to sleep, to diet, to sexual frustration, to not exercising, to not being in nature, to can't find anything in your house, gets cluttered. Like that's man-made, having a house with
Right,
fucking everything
environment.
for the past in. Like animals just migrate and they leave their twig where they last were. They don't bring like everything with you. Um, as you were saying a moment ago, like when you think about, we take our parents' energies with them. If you like certain things trigger off certain things in the mind and you become that vibration. Hence why it's so important just to keep moving forward, because if you see somebody and like think of old school friends, then you're going to think of old school friends and then things that happened and then they're going to come into your life and then before you know it, you're going down the pub with them because you met them and they say, hey, come out, I'm not seeing you in a while, and then you see everyone else and then you're thinking about them, but before you know it, you're going around for a barbecue and you'll be like you're 16 again. I'm like, no, I'm not 16. I've moved on. Fuck your barbecue. Yeah, this is not who I am. And
Yeah.
literally, you've manifested these things in your life that just by thought,
Yeah.
and everything like a disease comes from a thought. Like if you believe hay fever exists, then you're gonna sneeze and then take medicine. If you believe it doesn't, then you'll be like, oh, it's just a bit of dust in my room, and then your
Mhm.
immune sort of gets stronger because you want to counteract any disease. And I do find it amazing how like I use caffeine and coffee as an example. If I gave you a decaf coffee and said it was caffeine, then you'll be alert. If I gave you a caffeine coffee and said it was decaf, if you have a weak brain, then you'd be up. But if you have a
Mhm.
strong meditative mindset, that belief of this is decaf, it wouldn't affect you, even though it is caffeine. The same as
Mhm.
alcoholic beer and non-alcoholic beer. The brain can
Mhm.
counteract what it believes is real, but at the
Yes.
same time, like heroin, if I injected myself with heroin, there's no way I can counteract that feeling. But majority of the time, you can counteract most stuff you already believe. Um,
Yep.
like diet. I get addicted to a bag of Doritos because of the lectins in the corn and stuff. But at the same time, there is lectins which is making me want more. But at the same time, I can override it by
Yes.
focusing on other stuff. It's just that was just my rant, really.
I agree. I think above all else, our minds are the most powerful. And that kind of comes back to that perspective of like, okay, going outside of the earth, going outside of the planets, this universe, these dimensions, you know, because yeah, at the end of the day, like our thoughts are what creates our experiences. And it depends on like, what are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself, oh, I feel like really sick all of a sudden? Oh, I feel kind of lousy. Yeah, you're attracting more of that. And that's totally something I've used to boost my immune system as well. And many other things like manifestation is such a thing because just by thinking that thought, that's going to create inspired action to like bring you closer and closer to something. And what I love most about natural medicine, so I'm studying like alternative medicine, And what I love about like naturopathy or homeopathy, you know, kind of natural type doctors, is placebo effect is totally a thing, like what you were just talking about. The name placebo effect has kind of like almost a negative connotation within allopathic or mainstream medicine, because it's like, oh, well, you know, you just tricked the person, but it's like, but it still worked. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like you still have the result, right? So why would that not be valid? You know, it shows, yeah, the power of belief literally changes your brain chemistry. You know, it's all connected. The thoughts are changing, you know, the plasticity within your brain, creating new neural pathways, which create new actions and new opportunities and new experiences.
Plasticity, placebo. Is that why it was called place? Is that why it's called that? Placebo,
Say that again.
plasticity. You said placebo, plasticity. Is that why it's called it?
You know, I'm not sure, but that might make sense. Just because, you know, plasticity is just a characteristic of the brain, how it like it'll move its shapes by like by deliberately thinking like a thought over and over. It will literally change the shape of your brain, so it becomes a lot more natural. So, you know, I'm not sure if like placebo is related to that, but I could see that because, you know, you're thinking like a certain thought, and maybe that's like kind of counteracting any chemical that you've actually like ingested, you know, and so it's instead of like going down one pathway, it creates a new one.
Um, I want to talk about the power of having a tidy, ordered house. Like people think, oh, OCD, and then it's like people think if you have every drawer ordered and labeled, like if you were to go around someone's house, get me the scissors. Yep, that's the top drawer, left hand side, alphabetical order, and they'll think you're crazy because most people have just a cluttered fucking everything's in one drawer. It's like every drawer is just a mixture of everything, right?
Yep.
And so much brain energy trying to find stuff and the frustration when you can't, right? And so like nature, as I said, you'd leave it where you were, but everything's coming with you all the time. So you need to know what everything is. And having an ordered garage, house, bedroom, whatever, even having ordered spice cupboard in colour order, alphabetical order, people can joke about it. But to keep sane in a modern world which is just full of everything, right? You need to have order. Like simple stuff like on the back of a door, having what's in the cupboard, and then in the cupboard you have it all organized, like a computer system. I have a computer, of course, and I order all my files. They all have a category, for example, podcast, and then subcategory. So the number of the podcast, the name, it's like category, subcategory, subcategory. Most people's computer, like mine used to be, was just desktop all over the place, couldn't find shit, right? And I used to get so angry. And it was like, this is what life is. It's just everyone's thoughts just shat out everywhere. And no one has a clue what they're thinking of, who they're bringing into their life. And like, oh, John's come back to my life. Fucking, she wants to see me. And they're just flowing with like, oh, let's go out for dinner. Let's eat. I've already eaten, but I fancy another cheeseburger. And
Right.
it's just like, there's no control. No one has any control over their brain. And yet it's
Hmm.
like,
And
if
it
you had
kind
a
of creates
box of
these
rats,
toxic behaviors.
if you had a box of rats, you wouldn't just open the door and let them out and say, just do what you want. Like, and that's what everyone's doing. They're just opening doors to everyone come in. Bees come in, wasps come in,
Right.
rats come in. You can shit over there if you want. You know what I mean? It's just,
Right. No, I completely agree. Like environment is so key. Like you have to have like a sanctuary where you can go and like the energy is clear, because like the clutter, the physical clutter quite literally creates a lot of cluttered energy, and like that definitely goes back to like not being able to shut your brain off like when you need to, because you know there's so much clutter and chaos going on there, and that's getting into your mind, and it just starts like getting messy, and like you're picking up on like all these different energies without being able to clear it, because you can notice an energy. Like for example, if I'm like out in public, there's just so much chaos, you know, and sometimes if there's too much chaos, it can really start affecting you. You know, you notice dips in your emotions or whatever, if it energizes you or if it weakens you. But then I walk into like a yoga room, right? Like a yoga classroom where people like that energy is so solid in there, because people are there to meditate, people are there moving their bodies and moving that type of energy out of it. So just moving from a chaotic, messy place to something very clean, very clear. Everything is just very grounded. It's automatically like a, oh, like I can exhale and like release all of it, you know?
For example, they say a dog can smell a tumor, for example, before it's like the doctors even said, right? I can look at people and sort of make an assumption, a prediction that you've got a disease, right? But is it really you have a disease? Because if you think about it, if the doctor doesn't say you've got cancer, for example, then you'd never know that you've got cancerous cells, and then you could die when you're 100 and it never did anything because you didn't know. So it just disappeared in your body, right?
Hmm.
And then there's people who say have cancerous cells and then their life physically appearance wise deteriorates. You go to the doctor and they say yes, you've got cancer, whatever, right? But I could sort of look at people and sort of think you literally have dementia, cancer, blocked artery.
Hmm.
But then it's like, is that just common sense? But then it's like, well, what is common sense? Knowing that people who drink and smoke and are stressed and have fucked up teeth, that they probably will statistically have a disease. So really anyone can do that. And it's like, well, that is true. But
Hmm.
that's all comes down to judgment, and if you've got good judgment. So
Yeah.
it's like, so do you really have a gift or not to be able to predict this? So it's like, so what that's saying is that the majority of people do have diseases. That's what I
Hmm.
think it comes down to. Like I went out today for the first time. Shops have opened for the first time in England. I went out to a sports shop to get a basketball and a football because I wanted the football. I'm looking at people who I don't associate with. They're not my types of people. They're not the same energy as me. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, like they're overweight. They're like their hair's a mess, and I'm like their skin's bad. I'm like Jesus, like those are the people I grew up with. Like, and I changed my lifestyle to get away from, and I'm like Jesus, and I can feel the energy of the imbalance, like the negative, depressed, slow,
Yeah.
angry, just plodding along energy. And I walked in the shop and I'm just looking around. It's like fucking hell. They're all like robots. The staff are robots. It's just chaos. Like the energy. It is so true. Go to a yoga room. You feel this peace of like freedom. It's almost like being in nature. Not
Yeah.
as good because nature wins every time, but going
Yeah.
into a place of negative people in a pub where when you go into a restaurant and you can feel the service is going to be shit and everything's going to fuck up because everyone's sat there moaning about their 40-minute meal being late. The chef's pissed off because he's stressed. The managers are pissed because the staff are retarded. And the staff are pissed because the managers are shit. And then the waiters and the customers are angry because their food's delayed. And you can just instantly feel, I
You
shouldn't
can
have
feel
walked
it
into this restaurant
automatically.
because there's going to be issues. And yet we don't trust our gut.
Yeah.
And then we get
Well,
angry.
yeah, exactly. And I think kind of like what you were saying, it's kind of easy to like question yourself, like kind of like whatever you want to refer to it as, being like a sensitive person, empathic, or like maybe psychic abilities, when in reality, like these abilities are something that everyone has, and they're actually very practical. When you put it into perspective thinking, just like how natural medicine is viewed as like witchcraft or like woo woo type stuff, when in reality it's very practical. It's a way of like living with nature, and that's actually what we came from. But I think it's important to kind of remember that, especially if you're kind of a person that is maybe feeling like somewhat lonely, or like you're not around like-minded people, because I know like that's something that a lot of people kind of go through, especially when you're on like kind of a spiritual path. I feel like anyone who goes through something like a big transformation, you go through times of feeling like, is there anyone else that can relate to me? Like, am I the only person that kind of is feeling this way? If you're, say in a small town or whatever it is. But I think it's important to just remember, like, you're not crazy, like your thoughts and emotions are very valid, especially when like your intentions are good and you're living like a healthy or like a wholesome like lifestyle, and you're trying to make like a good positive impact on this world, and that's like your intention. I think it's important to remember that, like, no, like everything that you are feeling inside of you, it is valid because it is there for a reason, and it's the inspiration is there for a reason, and you should bring that out because other people out there, they need that. They need to hear like, hey, it's not that crazy to feel like I'm being telepathic with someone. It's not that crazy to feel that we are more connected than what we are told to believe.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I started this podcast is because I realized that all these awoke people are all over the world, and you tend to like meet them in Bali or Thailand or wherever, and then you go back to your life, and then that's pretty much it. And it's like there's not really one platform where they all share their knowledge. Yeah, there's Facebook groups, but they're more people looking for a new life. They're awakening, so they're not woke. People who are woke, they've done their journey and they're sort of just hiding in the forest because now they're protecting themselves. And so there was no place where, because I never had any friends growing up, and I still don't have any friends because no one was on the same page as me. And it was like, is there a way to connect, like a universal tribe, as I call it, where you can reach out to all these people, and then maybe one day when I'm rich enough, I can hire out like a massive hotel and just ship everyone into one place, like every woke person I've ever spoke to, in just one place,
That would be amazing.
like send them all out to Bali and just to meet because it's
Yeah,
almost like
that should
a
be a
mute.
thing.
It's almost like a mutual friend. Like I'm the center point of every woke person around the world that no one knows exists because these people are out there. It's just you have to find them. And so doing
Right.
this podcast, people who are listening are majoritarily awakening because people who are woke, as I said, they've listened to their shit and they've done it right. People who are awakening are seeing kind of the place that they're going to get to. Like they see our level of awareness, they are working their way up. And it's almost like I never had anyone to speak to. I never had a best friend in my ear to
Yeah.
teach me. I was working it out in my head. No one else
Mhm.
understood, thought I was crazy. I went on YouTube and I saw Oprah Winfrey, Will Smith, Bob Proctor, Bruce Lipstein individually speaking about things that I was thinking about, which confirmed that what I was saying was right and I wasn't crazy. But there
Yeah.
was still nobody else I could speak to because that was it. I just learned to know that they didn't understand because Bruce would say that people don't understand, that's okay. But if I had a person in my ear listening to a podcast like this, I'd be like, holy shit, everything that I thought about growing up, everything I was telling my friends is real. Listen to these people. I'm not crazy. So now it's like this is the light that they're going to see as they work towards because we are woke. And every awakening person around the world at any point in 5 years, 10 years, this will still be here because it's all the same knowledge. It's the same bullshit. Jesus was preaching everyone this nonsense, and still 2,000 years
Right.
later,
Yes.
people are still learning. It's like, well, what does that say? Are we ever going to learn our lesson, or is it just like, are we ever really? Is the whole world ever going to be free? The answer is probably not. That's pretty much comes down to Buddha, Jesus. They're all teaching the same shit, and 2,000 years later, people are still dumb. So what does that say? It means that life is far complicated. We are one species, one race, but we're really made up of millions and fucking everything. So really, you could just help the same tribe as you, and then forget what's happening over there because they're a different tribe. You know?
Right, 100%. And you know what? I think social media is such a powerful tool to use. And I think, yeah, of course, there can be a lot of negatives that come with it, but it all depends on how you use it. And I agree. Like when I was kind of going through like this like awakening, I was always like, does anyone else really like, because I didn't have, yeah, like a person or like a person right there with me, kind of like walking me through it and telling me, like, yeah, like I've experienced that too. I can relate. So, like, finding YouTube videos or finding other people that are talking about this stuff. And I'm like, okay, so this is a thing that other people are also experiencing. And I think that's why like Instagram and like whatever else can be such a powerful platform because it, creates these certain connections and it makes people realize like I'm not by myself here. There's so much more like going on. And yeah, maybe like the human species may not ever come to that point of like, oh, everyone is like awoke or whatever, because that's just not the reality of everyone. Some people, they're hardcore like atheists. They don't believe in an afterlife or anything type of like that type of thing at all. And that's okay. If that's like what is creating happiness within them, if that's what they're content with and they accept it, then that in itself, like that is enough. Like that is great. But I agree, like Jesus Christ, Gandhi, all these like spiritual leaders, all these like things that religion has been created off of. It's interesting to know, like, okay, Jesus Christ was actually like this super cool kind of hippie type rebellious dude, and what he was doing was just preaching concepts that we are talking about right now. Like, he was special because he was outside of the norm, and that's why he stood out. And same with all those other religious leaders. But at the end of the day, they are preaching concepts that we are talking about right now, because we are all equal powerful. We're all like the sons and daughters of God, or whatever, however you want to describe it. It's like we all have that ability. We're all there if you choose to be. Whatever makes the difference is like, choosing to believe what you want to believe and just standing in your truth, or following others because that is your truth. And like, that's okay too. Whatever you want to do, whatever resonates.
Yeah, it's like, these tribes people in forests that you sometimes see like a helicopter going over, and they like have their spear gun and they like shoot up, right? Those like footage you rare see. Amazon tribes people. Now just imagine that every man in, say, a modern world has eventually come from a jungle. So they've gone from the tribe, from an ape, right? Ape tribe, caveman, whatever. Now, you could say a human being has two legs and two eyes and 2 feet. They're humans, but an ape isn't, because that's a mammal for whatever reason, right? So you say, okay, well, those tribes people are humans. You're a human, I'm a human. Everyone on this earth and other countries are human. We should all be woke because we can be woke. So let's try and help everyone. Okay, so let's try and help everyone. But then you can't. So then you understand, okay, even though we are all called humans because you've got, 2 legs, 2 eyes, whatever, we're not. Because if you understand their level of evolution, their awareness, their biology, their spiritual vibration, whatever, could be far lower than us. If all they do is get up and then hunt fish and climb trees to get honey, their biology is different. They might eat tarantulas and birds that we have to cook. They're a different part of evolution. So they're the same as us in terms of human. What, so we go in and teach them how to be woke, teach them laws, teach them language? No. So that's what I'm trying to say. You can't, we are humans because somebody said a human being has 2 legs and 2 arms and 2 eyes, but we're so many variations of humans. Hence why you can't fix every human problem. You just can't, because we're not all the same. There is
Right.
multiple variations of biology, dimensions, energy vibrations of each thing. We're not the same, even though we speak the same language, maybe, or we may look the same. That is why you can't just save humanity and solve every problem and throw money at it, and government does this, and help every woke people cure their problems, because it's different evolution. Like, it might take thousands of years for their generation of people dying from cancer and lung disease to realize in, say, 50 years' time, 50,000 years' time, that this was all nonsense. And by that time, we are essentially at their level, but our ancestors 50,000 years before learnt this. Like, it's just the same cycle at different stages, and it just happens that because of planes and cars and transport, that we see, oh, another person, looks like us, but they're not the same as us. Like, they've been eating different foods and peanuts and dairy and grains and corns for years. They can cope. But someone in a Western world who just as a child tries to give his kid peanuts, he's an allergy. Has an allergy from milk. Like, everything's different. It's not the same.
Totally. I totally agree with you. And, I think it's also important to realize like every individual is at their own point of evolution as
Yes.
well. Like
Yes.
that's, I think, what kind of creates the difference with like lifestyle and sickness relevance and all of that. And I think, I believe that like we kind of already pre-decide these certain lessons that we need to go through within each lifetime. And I know like things like that like will be very individual for each person. But I think like we're put here on this earth like for a reason. Every single person has something to contribute, even if it's like something that maybe seems small to you, but in reality it's actually very big, because that is like their purpose. But I think the human species, it's really ironic when you think about the journey, because it's like it's like we come from the earth, living cohesively with the earth, and then the complete opposite, where we're destroying the earth and we're taking advantage and just stripping it of the resources. And it's like we're taking that full cycle journeying back, and it's a like a repeating pattern, it's a repeating cycle. And like in order to really heal this earth, like we have to heal ourselves, because we have those like pre-decided lessons that we have to go through in order to learn that lesson and then share that with someone else. And the more we're able to do that, like see our own mishaps or our own like kind of low vibrational qualities or whatever, we can realize that and then work to release that pattern, because it'll present itself in a different way. It's like it's a lifetime thing. It's not like, oh, I see it once and it's never going to happen again. It's something that will keep repeating itself throughout your whole life, you know. And it's getting to that point of like knowing how to deal with it and becoming an expert at yourself, you know, like knowing yourself so well that you are able to see like, oh, I've been down that road before. So how am I going to change this? How can I redirect this thought pattern? And the more we're able to do that, the more I think we're going to be like purifying ourselves, and the less we want to create more toxic behavior, the less we want to like create more toxic energy in the world in general. Because when you're feeling toxic, if you're feeling down and low, that's going to spread to others, you know, just like what we were talking about. And that toxic energy that just keeps getting more bundled up and stronger is what literally goes into the earth and gets absorbed, and therefore gets returned back to us in the forms of natural disaster, disease, and sickness, and anything else negative.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna take that away. What you said. You said on a everyone individually is on a different point of evolution. Now, and when you said that, I thought of specifically not what I don't not saying what you thought about, but I when you said evolution, it's the biology. Like the biology, everyone's body cells, genetics has come from a different acorn, essentially, right? Everyone's on a different point of evolution, not spiritually and awoke, but their bodies and how they
Right.
respond and their energy levels. And that's I'm taking that away from this. Everyone's on a different point because like everyone wants to heal everyone and help everyone naturally, but you realize you literally can't help anyone. You have to guide them in direction and sort of be there to answer questions when they
Yeah.
get that question in their head. Like my
Right.
dad couldn't tell me what I was going through because he knew I was going through something, but he couldn't actually help me because he didn't know the specific questions I was working out at that time. He was there when I needed to ask a question, but he couldn't get me there. It was my own journey. And it's the same for everyone. They may get here and you may have the answers to the questions that they might want to know there, but it's a journey and you have to keep joining in the dots until you're free. You can't just speak about some knowledge in the future and then that's really interesting. You're very smart and then go back to your life. Like everyone's on a different point and some keep going and some don't, and that all comes down to the biology, like the energy in the cells. And yeah, it's like you got to reprogram the generation before. I need to go for a wee. Quickly plug anything you want to plug and we shall end it there because it's been about an hour. Plug anything you want to plug or just say whatever you want to say before we end.
Okay, well, yeah, I think it's important to just remember that we're all on our own journeys, and we need to kind of just love each other for that and accept each other and try to uplift each other, because there's no point, especially in a time like this where there's so much chaos going on in the world. It's not a time to tear someone down just because they disagree with you or they have a different reality than you. It's important to come from a place of understanding and compassion and love always, because love is really it's the answer to everything, and love will ultimately guide us to our higher selves and to our best realities that we can experience. But yeah, other than that, it was such a pleasure chatting with you. I really enjoyed it. You can find me on Instagram, Promise Holistic Health. Other than that, yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and it was awesome getting to know you.
Okay, wait, I'm just going to say goodbye. I'm going to press stop and I'll say goodbye right there.